A lot of African children have to move out to have a better relationship with their African parents, because being the leader of a home takes an emotional intelligence that African parents do not possess. Once your relationship has that power dynamic of you are somebody I need, they do not have the emotional intelligence to not be abusive in that situation. African parents cannot exist in that power dynamic where you need them to that extent, because they don't know how to behave in that dynamic. They are usually much better once the kid moves out. Once you stop needing your parents as an African child, that's usually when things get better. Not because they were necessarily bad people, but they do not have the emotional intelligence to be able to have a healthy relationship with their child in that way. And that's why I've realized that for a lot of people, the solution is always going to be moving out. You have to move out. If you want to like your mum or you want to like your dad, you cannot live with them in that power dynamic. They do not know how not to abuse it. If you want to like your mum or you want to like your dad, you cannot live with them in that power dynamic. They do not know how not to abuse it. The solution is always going to be moving out. You have to move out.
I disagree. I disagree. Like, I could say this like 100 times on this one. Like, firstly, I'd like to know if the sister is actually African, and whether it's just her personal experience or dynamic of her and her parents that she's airing out here, right? I'm of African descent, born in the UK, raised in the UK, and my parents are of African heritage, right? So I personally disagree. I disagree from my own experience personally, but more importantly, like I believe the research would show differently as well. But I've only done research on teaching education in its relation to, African and Afro-Caribbean youth, right? So let me just, and teachers, let me add that. So let me kind of put a pin in that there. But for those of you who are educators or researchers, or those of you in the fields relevant, whether it's the psychology, whether it's whatever the fields are, because I don't even want to limit the fields by trying to say a list. Whatever the fields are, if you're in a field where you have access to research, or you've done research, or you're privy to research which speaks to this particular fact that's being shared, please let me know in the comments below. I want to know. Even if it's one line of your view on the research you've been exposed to, let us know in the comments below, because I vehemently disagree. I don't believe the challenge is African parents are incapable of basically engaging with the power dynamic of, if they're needed by their child, they can't respect them as an adult. I actually believe every parent has this complex to some degree. The only difference is the way in which it shows up, or the way in which we're able to see. Because in different cultures, you will find the same power dynamic is there, where if a child is needy, then the parent knows you need me, and as a direct byproduct of the fact that you need me, I'm going to act and operate in a way which showcases how needy you are. Like that's just basic maths, right? And I've got another video which we did recently speaking on a very similar topic, or we ended up speaking on the same vein. And the reality is, it's exactly the same. Like, it's the child's responsibility to grow to a stage when it hits a specific age. Okay, it's a different age for different people, but even those ages are bound by certain characteristics, and we can jump into that in a moment. But it's the child's responsibility to show its level of maturity, to show their level of maturity, in order for the parent to be able to relinquish the reins of responsibility in the various and varying different areas. It's on the child. It's not on the parent. Now, the problem is, if we listen to certain rhetoric from certain places, from certain camps, we will start thinking that it's on the parent to throw you in the deep end, or it's on the parent to throw you in the sea and see if you swim. Like, that's like, the world has never been built like that. Success has never come across like that. The parents having a certain level, which should have a certain level of success in terms of, managing the home, in terms of structuring things, in terms of following certain guidelines and frameworks in order to get their family to where they are the people who are supposed to create a safe environment for the child to now become an adult, or to showcase that they're an adult through means of their mature operations, to now reveal to the parent, okay, we're able to take on a bit more responsibility. We're able to do a few more things. We're able to be positioned in a few better lights, or in a few better ways. I don't think this is an African parents are incapable of this thing, like at all in any way, shape or form. Now, obviously I wouldn't, maybe I'm biased because I come of African descent. So maybe that's the bias I have, but I don't think this is a bias thing. I think in all different cultures, you will see that show up. It's the same as a parent taking their child out to walk on a street, and the kind of parent that will hold their child's hand because there is a road with cars speeding past, right? Is the same kind of parent that when that child is 13, 14, 15, that same parent still wants to hold some kind of, guardrails in place for their child. Why? Because they love them. Now, obviously, I'm going to say this in full transparency so you can see exactly where I'm coming from. Obviously, there's certain parents that some people have seen who don't hold their child's hand when they're speeding cars driving past because, they're going to be okay. Because, everyone who drives just drives in the road, right? Because there's no such thing as an accident. There's people who live like that. And you will find that they're the same people when the child's 13, 14, 15 years old. They've got no problem with the child going out and learning to smoke or whatever else it is, right? I don't think that's based on the fact that that parent doesn't have that challenge with control. I think what it is that parent, maybe through social dynamics, maybe through ethnic dynamics or whatever else it is, maybe through cultural dynamics. I just think the secondary parent in the example I've given has a more lax viewpoint or behavior around the control that they have or control they're trying to harness over their child, right? And again, I don't even think it's right for us to use these terms control, because I don't think control is the accurate term. I think it's more protection, it's more nurture. And that protection and nurture shows up in different ways, especially from people of different culture. And I think that's really the dynamic. But in all cultures, in all ways that any nurture, protection or control dynamic show up, I am fairly confident that if we look at some actually substantial research from anywhere around the world, what we'll probably find is again and again and again, it will showcase that when children walk in a level of maturity, their parents relinquish the controlling, the protection, or any other kind of responsibility. And again, a child is always going to be your child. For those of us who are parents, we understand that child is always going to be your child. You're always going to have a warmth towards them. You're always going to have the desire to protect them. You're always going to have that interest in making sure they do the best so that they can get the best. You're always going to have that for your child because they're your child. They're from your loins. They're your offspring. Like they're your next generation. That's always going to be the case as long as something's not wrong upstairs. But if that be the case, then the question I think really is, what does it take for parents to step back and allow their children to flourish and fly in certain areas, in certain cadres, in certain vicinities and vernaculars that child can potentially desire to fly? I don't think the answer is just move out. This is something, again, my team have been, sharing with me video after video, content after content of people saying, just move out, move out, move out. It's the answer to everything. Move out is the answer to everything. As a property investor, I can tell you moving out is not the answer to everything. It's not even the answer to many things. It's usually probably the first problem to many things. If you are someone who thinks moving out is the answer, it's usually not the answer. And like an old parable my dad used to say to me many a time, he used to say, don't go on holiday when you're dealing with problems, assuming that when you come back from holiday, the problems will be gone. Because when you come back from holidays, the problem will still be there. And he used to also add the caveat that sometimes the problem will be even worse because you've ignored it. And I think this is really the challenge. I think the people who are adamant on move out of your parents' house, this is going to be the answer to your success and to your future. I think what they're missing is the fact that if the problem isn't actually their parent, if the problem isn't actually all the things they think it is, and the problem is actually them, then what happens when you move out? You still take you with you. And you still end up with the same problems in different places. And the real challenge is, how do we become people that are introspective enough, that engage with metacognition enough? And for those who don't know, metacognition is a long word with a simple meaning. It just simply means thinking about your own thinking. How do we end up as people with enough self-reflection, with enough metacognition, so that we can recognize when we are the actual problem and our parents aren't the problem, when we are actually the problem and migrants aren't the problem, or we are the problem and all these other things that we can easily and quickly point to as the problem are not actually the problem because we are the problem. And the reality is this: if we are the problem, you know what we need to do? We need to fix the problem. And the problem is, most time we're not willing to fix the problem because we're not first even willing to identify the real, true, genuine problem. Now, I don't know. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Am I just talking the smoke, or is this actually real? Are you an African parent? Do you think you've got a problem where you can't relinquish control or relinquish protection or relinquish the reins or harness on your child? And do you believe that it's always going to be like that until your child moves out? Or are you someone who says, no, you know what, Samuel, I think you got it spot on. I actually think that when my child shows me her maturity or his maturity, I'm very free and very open and very easy to allow them to flow and flourish into whatever it is they desire to do. I want to know your comments below so I can know how this really goes. And for those of you who are in the fields of research, let me know in the comments. I want to know, even maybe point me to research papers I'm interested in reading, point me to your views I'm interested in feeding. With that being said, remember, small keys open big doors. I look forward to seeing you on another video. If you like this video, you know what to do. Like, comment and subscribe so you can become a part of the tribe. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Good day. God bless. Let's go.
Small keys open big doors.